What's up, everybody? So today I'm going to be giving you my initial thoughts on Io, the new character in Paladins. I'm going to be breaking her down pretty in depth. I'm going to be talking about all of her abilities, all of her legendaries, as well as all of her cards and my thoughts on them. I think she has a lot of really good things in her kit, a lot of creative and fun things, but I also think she has a lot of really bad things in her kit that can make her struggle. So to start off, I'm just going to be talking about her left click. Uh, does 400 damage per auto, and it has 0 fall off damage, which is probably the best part about it. She can actually put out a pretty decent amount of damage for a support. In the games that I was playing, I noticed that I wasn't healing a ton with her, but I was able to still put out a bunch of damage. So, with that being said, I feel like she might be falling into a similar place as Pip, where he's used as an off healer, basically meaning he's a healer who's classified as a support, but you play him like a damage. So yeah, that's her left click. Her heal is called Moonlight. It heals and channels Moonlight into an enemy, healing them for 135 every 0.15 seconds. Moonlight regenerates when not in use. I think her heal isn't really good at all. You can run some different legendaries to make it better, but she has some major fall offs to her heal. One of them being that you have to hold LOS with your teammate while you're healing him the whole time. Uh, I mean, just having to peek and stay peeked while you're healing as a healer is just very bad. If you're seeing your teammate, unless you're holding an off angle, more than likely the enemy is going to be able to not only see your teammate that you're healing, but also see you, and that puts you in danger. On top of the fact that she doesn't have much self-sustain for herself, having to peek and heal and stay peeked to heal uh, puts her in a lot of danger in general. And on top of that, it really doesn't even heal for that much. Uh, it basically takes over half of your healing bar to heal up one tank to full, and it takes a really long time to do that. I think she would struggle pretty hard to heal a double tank and still be able to heal her DPS with just her right click, of course. Next, I'm going to be moving on to her movement ability, which is called Lunar Leap. You quickly leap backwards through the air. You get some really big height when you use this ability. It's a 10-second cooldown, which isn't too bad. It's a little long for a movement ability, but you can run a card to reset it if you fall below a certain percent of HP, so that's nice. But my biggest concern with this movement is the fact that when you use this, you're flying so high up in the air, in the open. Like, if there's any good hit scan player on the other team, a Leon, a Canessa, a Strix, anything like that, a Victor even, they're just going to be able to snipe you out of the air. I think you can do some really cool stuff with it because of the fact that you get some serious height with it, like you can jump to different high grounds. But basically, when you use this ability, you need to make sure that you're using it at an angle outside of the opponent's LOS, or else they're just going to kill you when you just leap directly backwards. So next we're going to just move on to Luna, or the Guardian Spirit. I think this is probably my most entertaining part of Luna or Io's kit. There's a lot of different things that you can do with Luna. You can use it aggressively, throw it like on top of people while you're autoing them with the range card, use it to stun them and win 1v1s like that. You can put it on top of you and use it to body block, so they have to shoot Luna instead of shooting you, and you can kind of kite around with it. Or if you're using one of her other legendaries, it'll also heal. But it is a deployable that counts as a character. With that being said, it means that you're able to buy Bulldozer against it, which is going to make it die faster. Uh, which Bulldozer being really cheap makes it so I don't think Luna's that great. If you do run a deck revolved around Luna, even if you run 5 in health, she's still pretty squishy when people end up buying Bulldozer. So that's a problem I feel like people are going to encounter when playing it. Another thing, since it's a deployable that's played, or a deployable that's also a character. That's what Hyros was going for with this. It can actually contest capture point and push the payload, so you can use it to do that, which I think is a really cool mechanic. You can drop Luna on cap, and all 5 of your team just pushes forward to zone. So Something I noticed not a lot of people know, but as she gets played more and more, people will probably start to recognize that. Next, we're going to move on to her ultimate, Be Gone. Um, you basically channel your ultimate, and then it catches enemies inside of it, and it pushes them until they hit a wall, or if they don't hit a wall, they just keep getting pushed and pushed and pushed until they're off the map. And then when they do hit a wall, it'll do 800 damage. This ultimate, I feel, I mean, you can do some big things with this ult. Like you can ult people off the map, which is nice, but it seems really hard to do effectively, and it clips on walls really easily. Like if you're playing next to a wall, if you try and ult someone that's near a wall, it's just gonna hit the wall instead of them. I think it's a very hard ult to hit effectively. I think it's a hard ult to hit multiple people with. I really just don't think it's that great of an ult in general. In competitive play, you might be able to just ult someone and then your team just shoots them while they're flying back, or combos with the ultimate and kills someone. But in a casual environment, I don't think you're going to get a ton of value off of your ultimate unless you're on a map like Frog Isle or Jagfall, where you can ult people off of the map. So next, we're going to move on to her legendaries. So the first legendary I'm going to talk about here is Lifelink, which is where Luna now heals allies around her for 300 health per second. I think if you are going to be a main healer and you have 2 tanks, I think this is probably the legendary that you have to run. Just your right click is not going to be enough to heal everyone on your team. It's simply not going to be enough. So the disadvantage of running this legendary is it makes it so you can't really use your Luna aggressively. You can't really play aggressive with it and look for kills with it. You want to try and, if you're using this legendary, hide it behind walls, kind of like a Ying clone out of the enemy's LOS while still healing your team. It does heal through walls, so you got that going for you. But yeah, I think if you have 2 tanks and you're the main healer, this is the legendary you probably want to run. Next, we're going to move on to Goddess Blessing. That's where allies being healed by Moonlight gain 25% damage reduction. At first, when IO came out, I was like, okay, this legendary is going to be broken. It's going to be the best legendary. All the other legendaries don't even matter. But as I play her more and more, I feel like it's really not even that good. Like, the DR is nice, 100%. But your heal doesn't heal that much. And thus, if you have 2 tanks, you're just not going to be able to heal everyone. Like, her healing numbers are just so low in general, and you have to hold LOS with the other person, so if they just run away from you, or like they're playing around a wall or something like that, you can't heal them. Like, you're not going to be able to heal them to full, and the DR is not going to be effective. There are times where I think you are going to run this legendary. Say for example, if you're going for some like pocket comp with like a Torvald Genos, and you want to pocket like say a Leon, or I don't know, anything that you want to pocket to just frag the other team. This would probably be a good legendary to combo with that stuff. Giving it all that damage amp on top of 25% damage reduction would be probably pretty nuts. I also think you'd probably run this legendary if you have a solo tank on your team. It's going to help the solo tank live longer, but since you don't have 2 tanks to heal up, you probably are going to be able to heal your team for the most part with this legendary, and so this is probably the one that you want to use. It's also going to help your DPS win duels, 1v1 duels with the DR. For reference, 25% DR is basically Haven 4 or not Haven 4, Haven 3 or Blast Shields 3. If you get Haven 3 or Blast Shields 3, it's 21% DR for both Haven and Blast damage, so this is 4% more DR than Haven 3 or Blast Shields 3. So it's actually a massive amount of DR. It's basically Haven 3 right off the first round. So we're gonna move on to our next legendary called Sacrifice. This is where if Io falls below 200 health while Luna is active, she trades places with Luna, heals, and dies in her place. So I think that this legendary, originally I thought this legendary was never gonna be played. I thought it was pointless, but this is kind of like Pip's Catalyst. This is where you would, this is the legendary you would run if you're playing DPS Luna. I played it a bit. I mean, her damage really isn't that strong. You're probably not going to be able to straight up 1v1 someone unless they miss some shots. But if you're playing around your Luna correctly and you're using it and using the stun effectively in your 1v1s, she can actually win some duels. And Sacrifice allows you to either basically get out of a 1v1 that you were going to lose for free, or you can place the Luna really safely with the range card, and basically you just use it kind of like a Talus rune. So like you drop Luna really really far back, and then you flank the other team, and you go for 1 or 2 kills, and then whenever you're about to die, you just teleport to safety again on the Luna. So I think this is going to be the legendary that people are going to run if they're damage IO, and I think damage IO is probably the best version of IO that you're going to see. I don't think, as far as healers are concerned, she's better than a majority of healers that are out. I actually think she's probably one of the weakest healers. Her heal is a little bit stronger than a Grok Spirit's Domain heal, which is very weak, and it's in the same sense where you have to hold LOS with your teammate the whole time you're healing them, which is just a huge downside. Like if you're playing Saris, you can just peek for a second, heal, use your heal, and then go back behind the wall, and then they'll be full health. But this is just completely opposite, where you have to literally stay peaked the entire time, and it's still going to take the same amount of duration to heal them, probably longer actually. So I feel like Io is going to end up being an off healer, sort of like Pip. I don't really see her being a main healer at the current state where she's at. She just doesn't heal enough. She has to stay peaked to heal. Her movement is very vulnerable to hit scan. I think she has a lot of issues when it comes to that. So next we're going to move on to her cards. Under her cards for her Luna ability, you can increase Luna's deploy range by 20%. You can increase Luna's health. You can reduce the cooldown of Luna's initial deploy, and you can make it so Luna restores your moonlight every second while you're in a 30-foot range. So I think the increased Luna deploy range is going to be a card that you're going to see people running a lot. The initial, like the base Luna deploy range is pretty low, but if you run a few points in the deploy range, you can actually place Luna really far. Like I said, I can see her being played as a DPS, and I think if you're going to play Sacrifice and you're going to play Io as a DPS, you want to run the deploy range at least 3. And it's going to allow you, so if you're taking a 1v1 at a distance, you can just drop Luna right on top of them, and then while you're fighting them, it's going to stun them, and that's basically a free kill on any DPS that you're fighting. Initially, I thought the health card was good, but the fact that you have to invest like 5 points in it just to get 1,000 health doesn't make it seem that great when you can just buy Bulldozer 3 and effectively do 1,000 health and just basically negate that card. And you really don't want to put 5 points in the health card, considering, in my opinion, Io has a lot of flexibility in her kit. I think she has a lot of really good cards, and I think you're going to see a lot of diversity in Luna or Io decks. So next I'm going to move on to Lunar Connection. I think reducing the cooldown of Luna's initial deploy, I think you're going to see this card a little bit because of the fact that Luna's initial deploy is an 18-second cooldown. If you're playing Sacrifice, I think you're going to want to run this card, because if you don't have Luna up, you can't use the legendary. If Luna's dead or on cooldown, it'll just kill you instead of trading places with her. So I think you're going to see people trying to run this card on Luna. Next we're going to move on to Protectors. I think if you're running the Luna heal legendary, you probably run this card, but otherwise I don't think you touch this card. Next we're just going to move on to Lunar Leap. I like Crescent. I think running it at 2 or 3 is a good idea. The fact that her movement is a 10-second cooldown means that there is a pretty solid likelihood that you're going to get into another fight before that 10 seconds is up. It saved me more than once. Also the fact that you can use your movement, hit the threshold where you get your movement again while you're using your movement, and then land and use it again. You can clear a ton of space with that. Eternal, whatever it's called, Lunar Leap restores 2 ammo. I really don't think you're going to see this card at all. Even in DPS Luna decks, like, it just really doesn't seem that effective to me. I think maybe you'll see it at a one of card, but there's just so many good cards in Io's deck that you're probably just not going to see this one that often. Full Moon. I think if you're Damage Luna, you could probably fit this in somewhere. But you probably aren't able to put that many points into it, and I'm not really sure how great it is. The fact that you are so vulnerable during your leap makes me think that you want to run this card, but even at a 5 point in the card, you're only getting 500 health shield, which is basically just one more auto attack for most DPSs, or for some DPSs it's literally less than an auto attack. It's probably not going to save you in a ton of scenarios. Half Moon, I feel like you're probably not going to see this card too often. Again, just the fact that there's so many good cards that Io has, I don't think you're going to see this one played that much. So next we're going to move on to her healing cards. Restored Faith, I think if you are running Heal Luna, either of her 2 healing legendaries and not the damage one, you're going to want to run this at a pretty high value. This is literally the only self-sustain that Io has other than running the Luna Heal legendary and just having it near you. With the fact that you have to be peeking to heal, and with the fact that she's so squishy, I think you're going to want to run this card in most of your decks, pretty much all of them, if you are healing Io. Sanctum of Faith. Initially I thought this card was pretty good, but when you look at Protectors, which is Luna restores 2% Moonlight every 1 second in a 30-foot range, and Moonlight Garden, which we'll talk about later, hits with Light Bow restore 2% Moonlight. The fact that this one's only a 1% makes me like it less. Also, you have to not be using your Moonlight to restore it, as opposed to Protectors where you can be healing, and as long as you're standing next to Luna, it's still building it. But I think if you are Heal Luna, or Heal Io, sorry, if you are Heal Io, you're probably still going to want to run this card in your decks, because running only Protectors or running only Moonlight Garden probably isn't going to be enough regeneration that you need. So you'd probably run this at like a 3 card, or something like that. Spirit Arrows. So initially I thought this card was going to be pretty trash, but I think if you're running Luna Heal, it's actually probably not a bad card to throw into your deck. You're going to have to reposition Luna a lot to get effective heals off on your team. And also when people are targeting the Luna, the 8-second cooldown, they're going to be able to kill it, especially if they buy a Bulldozer. So you're going to have to reposition it and heal it back up before you throw it back out there to heal your team. So you might see some people running this card. Swift Arrows. Initially I thought this card was going to be really OP, because Swift Spirits on Damba is really OP. I still think this card's really good. Being able to give your teammates move speed just seems really good as a healer, but it just also seems really hard to fit this into your deck with how many other cards you feel like you have to run, such as Restored Faith, such as Reset on your Leap, such as increased deploy range. And if you're only running Swift Arrows that are 1 or 2, it's probably not even worth it, but you still might see this get played a little bit. Celestial Body, gain 50 health. I feel like you're going to want to run this if you're playing DPS IO with how squishy she is. If you are able to fit it into your deck, you don't want to just run it as a one-of, probably, because it's probably not going to do too much. But if you can fit it into your deck at a 3 or 4, it's probably worth it. Moonlight Garden. I think this card's really good if you're playing Healing IO on either of the legendaries. I think this is probably the best way to restore your Moonlight. If you run it at 5 points, you can get it up to 10% for every shot that you hit with your left click, and I think you could get some serious value and regeneration with your Moonlight with this card. So I think you're going to see this in probably most of the Heal IO decks that you encounter. The last 2 are Moonwalk and Skywalker. I saw these cards and I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then I actually tested them out in the training range, and I think they're both just pretty bad. Being a healer and being in the air, for the most part, isn't really a good idea. You're just going to make it easier for people to shoot you if you're in the wide open flying. And you don't really stay flying that long. It's not like you're a Wormjet Strogos where you can fly above buildings and stuff. You're just kind of hovering there slowly. So I don't really think you're going to see people running these cards too often other than in troll builds. And next we're just going to be talking about some decks that I've been running on IO lately. These are obviously going to change as people play IO more, as I learn IO more, and figure out what really feels good with what and what doesn't. But I think Io has a lot of really good cards in her deck, so I think you're gonna see some pretty diverse card selections throughout her decks, which is I think a good thing. The deck I've been running the most lately with the DR Legendary is my deck called Heal. I think it's a pretty good standard deck that I think most people are going to try and run something similar to that. I think the heal move speed has some sort of merit. When you get swift arrows all the way up to level 5, it can make it so when you're healing someone, you're giving them 40% move speed. So for reference, 30% move speed is what you get when you buy Nimble 3, so you can get 10% above that just solely based off of a card, which I think is pretty nuts. So I think you're going to see some decks come out that are built around that. As far as the Luna Heal Legendary goes, uh, I just have more cards on Luna's initial deploy because if you don't have Luna, obviously you're not going to have very many heals. It's bound to die eventually. It's going to happen throughout the game. I also have a little bit of increased range since the range is so short. So for the DPS deck, I have a few things that are different here. I have Luna's deploy range up to 80% because her deploy range is really small, and when I'm playing the DPS IO, I like to cast my Luna on top of the person I'm shooting, which might not be even anywhere close to me, and it'll allow me to stun them while I'm fighting them, and it helps you win 1v1s really hard against other DPS characters. I think she's pretty good at that with this. I also have some health since I think she's really squishy, and Full Moon at level 2 just has a little bit extra survivability. Wasn't really sure what else to put there, so I just threw that card in. So that's basically it. Um, to sum up my thoughts on Io, I think in this current state that she's at, she's not going to be good as a solo healer. I have yet to be able to get scrim practice on her because she is not available in the PPL yet. So I could be wrong, you know. There could be a deck that comes out and suddenly she's nuts at healing, but it doesn't seem that way. With the fact that you can counter her heals with Bulldozer, if you're lifelink, and the fact that if you're Goddess Blessings, you, it's just really not enough to heal 2 tanks. I don't think you're going to see it a ton. I do think if you're playing with a solo tank, I think she could be a good healer though. I think if you're playing a standard comp with 2 tanks, 2 DPS, she's not going to be very effective, but Goddess Blessing with solo tank seems like it might be viable. I think the best way to play IO is to probably run Sacrifice and play her as a DPS. So thanks for watching everybody. This is just, again, my initial thoughts on IO. You know, things might change as things go on or, you know, balance changes, but how IO is right now and with how much I've played her, these are my thoughts. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.